All right, and we are recording. So the way we work this is we get a queue going, right? We basically just line up and go in order of the way people sign up. So people have emailed me some stuff. I have a bunch of emails. So we'll go in the order of however I received those emails earlier today and this week. Are there people in this group that did not email me that do want to share? If you do, type your name into the chat box and I'll just get a running tabulation going, or whatever you call it. And we'll go right in that order. So if you want to share, go ahead and start. Yeah, there we go. People putting their names in there. So in the interest of sharing time with everyone, there's 25 people here tonight. We'd like to keep it limited to about 5 minutes. I've been saying 3 in the email. People have been sending me 5. I don't really care, you know, as long as we share and, you know, try to keep it to like 5 minutes so everyone gets to go. All right, so you might as well just get right into it, right? So it looks like, who's first? Looks like Beth is the first person. Beth, then John, and then Dave.
Oh, me. Okay. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before you go, Beth, I'm going to mute everybody. Keep it quiet, and then we can just unmute ourselves as we want to speak, and then mute ourselves again. So you're going to have to unmute yourself again. Okay, Beth?
Okay. Let me go to my iNet. 1 second. Share. Okay. I swear to God, I know how to share screen. I actually don't. Can you tell me?
We see you. Oh, no, it's not sharing the screen yet. Okay.
Yeah. What do I do again?
Sorry, I was messed up.
So if you're on a PC, Beth, usually it's a toolbar at the bottom when you hover your mouse down towards the bottom, and there's a green icon that says share screen. It's right in the middle of my computer.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, okay. They really don't make it easy, do they? Okay. So I found a couple things recently that I thought were really fun. So this, can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
It's
We're
loading.
seeing all your stuff.
Okay. So this is Phleogena faginia. Are we gonna say that? It's really cool. I found it and I was certain that it was a slime mold, obviously. And it's not. It's a basidiomycete, actually. And I thought that that was super cool. So it was growing on basically the underside of like an old fallen beach that already had tons and tons of crusts growing out of it. So it's pretty well decayed, but it was growing right on the bark still. And I spent a lot of time with it being like, wow, what a cool slime mold. So it was super fun then to find out that it was a basidiomycete. Another thing I just found was, I don't know if everyone knows what this is, but this is one of my favorite things. And I find it really fresh in the winter in Philly. It's Plecodropsis crispa. And it has the cutest little crimpy gills. And it took me years to find this. And when I did find it, I was like, wow, this must be so uncommon. And now I find it all the time, and I realized that I just spent a long time assuming that it was cerium and not picking it up. And now I can tell the difference from the top, so I see it all the time. So those are the 2 things that I found recently that I super loved that I wanted to show everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth.
Beth, the blue crust.
Oh, that wasn't a blue crust. That was just the blue turkey tail. I mean, it's
no,
turkey.
the blue crust that we found this summer at Pennypack.
Oh yeah, but I was just doing my recent ones just because.
I thought this was best of 2020.
Oh no, those are the ones that I just found this week. I just wanted to share them because I just found them and it's more topical. But yeah, obviously the blue crust is like one of the best, but I'll let other people share for a while.
Okay.
It is the best of 2020, but it's also members' finds for February.
Yeah. So I was doing more the second one.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Beth. All right, John, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, John.
All right. Let me share screen. Share. All right. We got the share screens up?
Yep, sure
All
do.
right. One of the Hydenellumas I found this year. I don't know which one it is, but something I've never seen before. Let me get another one clicked up. I got this little Hydenelluma too. And then a greenish one, a little bit greenish. I thought it was sort of strange.
Similar to Conicum, but colored a little differently.
Are these all pine barrens, John? I see this one's Wells Mill.
Yeah, it's all under the pine and what is it? Cedar.
Mm.
Yeah. Stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Are you all done, John?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I have no idea what any of those little Untilumas are. Does anybody else? Does anybody?
Well, the last one, the last one was shaped a little bit like Conicum, but was colored differently. And the habitat is probably different as well. There's so many Antilomas. Look on Champignon du Quebec. You know, there's a boatload of Antiloma species documented there, and I'm sure that's not all of the ones in North America. And Linus Kuzma spent quite a lot of time trying to, research the Antilomas. And right now he's sort of lost interest in them in favor of Venacity. But yeah, there's a lot of Antilomas. I mean, I find a whole lot of them too that I don't know what they are.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, David, you are up.
Okay, let me unmute. Let me try this. My screen just went blank. Do you guys see that?
Yes, we do.
All right, that is a Trichloma matsutake. Went with a friend into the pines who has a couple spots for these. These are interesting mushrooms. They are a fall mushroom. I hear things like the pine needles need to be 6 inches thick or these things don't grow. This is pine needles on the ground. But when we found these, they were just the very tops of the crowns were sticking out. So it was just like a little white spot in the pines. And in the pine needles, as we pushed them aside, we found about 8 of these. I ended up with 2. They are originated in Japan, from what I gather, and whether they were brought here or grow here, they are very difficult to find. They're like a prize find. Very interesting, smell like cinnamon, maybe a little bit of gym socks. They can have all different kinds of smells, but they're very great texture. They slice them really thin, put them in a miso soup or something equivalent. That was a fun find.
Yeah, that's a nice find. I think the species from Japan is probably a different species.
Okay.
Charles Peck described these in New York State.
Okay.
So we do have our own species.
Excellent.
I find them every year.
Do you really? That's great.
In New York?
Yeah, up here in Saranac Lake, I have a spot very close to me.
Yeah.
Early October.
All pine trees? Like, is it a pine forest that you find these?
It's a combination of large balsam fir, pine. Yeah, it's mostly conifers.
Cool. Cool. Okay, and just another one I.
And just so Igor put the name of that into the chat. Thanks, Igor.
Cool. I'll look at that when I get off of this. I just want to share this one. This was in a neighbor's yard. So it looks like I have a nice little find. They come back every year. This is your Grifola frondosa. It is the hen of the woods, hen of the woods mushrooms generally, and ram's head it's called. These are one of my favorite to eat. This is a fall mushroom. Grows at the foot of oaks, generally in the crotch between the roots, is generally where I find them growing. These were about the size, maybe a little bit bigger than a softball, really prime for eating. But I have found them, this is South Jersey, I found them as large as maybe 4 basketballs in a large growth. And they're just as tender whether they're little or they're huge. Really prized as well. These were back in October. So I haven't really got out much in this last month, too much snow. But that's all. I don't want to take too much time.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to share their screen now before I start sharing? I have about 6 or 8 emails from people. Okay, well then I'm going to share my screen and I will just start in the order that I received these emails, which I believe Dave started, Dave Washleski.
Okay.
Now, sorry, Dave.
It's all right.
My kid was telling me she was doing the litter box. And I didn't want to miss that opportunity. Okay, right here at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I probably already showed this, but I have an update on it. This has been sequenced. It's not just it's not an undescribed species of Neolecta like I thought it may have been because some of the micro didn't fit. But I got Linus Kuzma to sequence it. It's a nearly perfect match, one ambiguous character. It's a nearly perfect match with a collection of Neolecta vitellina made by David Hewitt in Cape Cod. And I've been corresponding with David quite a bit. He's pretty excited about Neolecta being found in Pennsylvania. He says it's the first time that it'll be a verified collection from Pennsylvania. And we're working now to write it up and get it deposited into the Academy of Sciences in Philadelphia, where David is he's active with them in some capacity. I forget exactly what. But so that was I've been finding these for the past few years, but I only really brought some. I brought some home this year after Luke actually hooked me up with this David Hewitt guy, and he was pretty excited. So I went back to the spot where I found these, and there were still some left, and so I made a collection to dehydrate, and they're ready to go. They're preserved, and so they will they'll be deposited into the Academy of Sciences. And David Hewitt he says he'll do some more microscopy on it. I'm sure he can do a better job than I've done here, but I was able to get a rough, good estimate, reasonable estimate on the lengths of the asci, and they're bigger than Neolecta irregularis and smaller than Neolecta vitellina, and the difference between those two ranges is pretty large. So they occupy sort of this range in between, but apparently the reports of the dimensions for the asci of Neolecta vitellina are now going to be extended David Hewitt told me that he also had made some collections of Neolecta, which I presume were Vitellina, where the lengths of the asci did not match what was previously believed to be understood. So that's a good find because it's, well, it'll apparently be the first time it's reported from Pennsylvania. People have probably found it, but nobody's gone through the trouble of having it documented, I guess, is probably the story there. So David is sort of an expert on Neolecta, so I'm just trusting him on, that he knows these things. So that was an interesting little project.
He told me one time when he was talking about them, because we were talking about the Jersey Pine Barrens, and he said he would be shocked if we didn't find it in the Pine Barrens, but I don't think we've ever actually identified it from there.
Yeah, you guys go there a lot, and maybe it's just not the right kind of pine.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
pretty sure what I found these by was Virginia pine. Although these 2 and 3 needle pines are confusing to me. They're more confusing than the mushrooms, really, to be honest. So what else do we have here? So this is an interesting thing. I've never found a mushroom from this genus before. I found this and I sort of thought, geez, this looks kind of like a cross between a Mycena and an Entoloma. And indeed, it had a pink spore print, and the spores were not obviously angular, but when viewed in certain profile, they were somewhat angular. And that fits the description very well for mushrooms in this small genus, Entocybe. So there's this species, Entocybe, I think it's a Prischia or something I've got written down here.
Yeah, here you go.
It's been only recently authored, I suppose, because it's a Tim Baroni species. And I think that's probably what this thing is. There were 2 of them. It was a late foray for our little local club here. I think it was November, actually, maybe even mid-November. So you can see the spores here. It's not the greatest picture, but you can see how in certain profile, you can see they're angular. And then in other profile, you can't really see angles. So that's actually fits the description very well for what Entocybe spores are supposed to look like. So I preserved this one. There were 2 mushrooms. The one was really old and falling apart. And that might be the one I got the spores out of. And I preserved the other one. So I have that collection preserved. And I imagine I will probably end up sending this either for DNA or it'll probably end up in the NJMA herbarium for storage, because I'm guessing it's that maybe there's Entocybe in the herbarium already. I don't know. I guess Dorothy is kind of in charge of that. Dorothy Smolin. So I did send her an email with a list of things to look at to see if she would like to have any sent to be stored in the herbarium. But that one might end up going into in for DNA. So first we would do that. And then there's this third thing here, another genus that was new to me. I found this thing in this late spring, or may have been early summer. Oh no, not this one. Okay, this one. Yeah, okay, that's not the one I'm talking about though. This is a new species of Boletus, which is probably going to end up in Landmeoa. And Igor had this sequenced. I sent him part of the collection. I made 2 collections of this. I thought it was probably Boletus sensibilis. It didn't really have an odor. And it stains like crazy. You cut it and it turns blue really, really quickly. I think I might have a picture section down here. But it's more or less a pretty new species, just recently authored by Lamoureux. So that was kind of a good find, and I was able to get it identified. Igor was very helpful in this. He was the one who suggested sensibilior, and it is documented on Champignon du Quebec. It fits very well what what this is supposed to be like. So this is KOH on the right, ammonia on the left. You can see the color reactions on the cap surface and on the stipe surface.
Can I interrupt for one quick second? Because there was a question earlier about what people use KOH for. So whoever asked that, you can see here where he took the KOH, potassium hydroxide, and dropped it on the mushroom, and it's reacting to these colors.
Yeah, you get different color changes, and sometimes not much of a color change. And for some species, there's not much consistency in what sort of color change you see. But in some cases, the color change will be very consistently, to one particular color. And then this is the context inside the cap on top, and the same two chemicals in the context inside the stipe on the bottom too. And I guess I'd probably try, oh, okay. So bolete spores are not exactly the most interesting things in the world. They pretty much all look the same, but it's always good to try to get some measurements, and, because it's part of documenting something. And so I tried to get that. So that was a cool thing to find. I found it twice in the exact same spot. Found it once, went back about 10 days later, found it again, exact same spot. I thought it was Boletus sensibilis. That's what I proposed it as on Mushroom Observer. And then, after conferring with Igor and also having a little more work done on it, it looks like it's probably this Boletus sensibilior thing, which is, it's an interesting thing to find. And so that was good. And then this is another genus that was new to me. I found this thing in late, it was early summer, right after the start of summer, June 29th. So I thought, it looked like some kind of Mycena. I thought, this is a weird looking Mycena. It was growing out of the ground in mixed woods, probably hemlock dominated area. And so I took it home and I got some spores and looked at the spores. They were not amyloid. Most Mycena spores are amyloid, and they were definitely not amyloid. And they had really prominent warts on them. The spores were really warty. So I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting for a Mycena, non-amyloid spores with lots of fairly large warts. So I just put it up on Mushroom Observer and proposed it as agaricales, which basically means, okay, I don't know what this is. And so this guy, Chris Cassidy, first of all, he thought Gamundia, but I didn't really think Gamundia, because they're more like Clitosebes really, and the spores I don't think would look like these. But then this guy Chris, he did a little more research and he came up with this species, and I forget how to say it, or this genus, Sagra something or other. I'll have to see it actually to remember. But I've got those preserved also. The spore pictures are not great. The micros are not great. This is through my binocular scope, so I point a camera through one lens, and it's not very good resolution. I actually get better pictures through my other monocular scope that's old and beat up, but at least all the view is concentrated into one lens. At any rate, yeah, there we go.
Here's your name.
Sagranella tylocolor. So that's a new genus to me. I hadn't really known about this. And this guy, Chris Cassidy, he's the one who, he sort of did some work and figured this out. And I think he's right. I think that's what it is, because I looked it up. I think the species is probably documented on the Quebec site. So, so I compared and everything looked pretty much like that's what it is. And so that's pretty much it for me. I mean, I've got a bunch of other things here, if there was time, but there's a lot of other people want to go. So
Yeah, if we have time.
yeah. Okay, so that's it for me.
Thanks, Dave. Good
Sure.
stuff.
You're welcome.
Okay, John and Nina. Hey there, Nina.
Yeah, here.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Okay, these are all February mushrooms that we get in Pine Barrens, and they're different years, but they were all collected in February. So that we found this Cantholula. As you can see, it's growing in the snow. So that was we got that in 2019, and that's Rhizopogon, and that's Rhizopogon truncatus. That was gotten in 2019 too, and I had spores that went with it. So
Here's the name for anybody that wants to see it up here at the top.
those are the spores.
Yeah, there's the spores.
Yeah, they're not Lycopodon spores or anything. They're Rhizopogon spores. And then this one, these aren't just, as you can see, there's a swelling in the trunk of the tree, and there's two fungi that attack the Atlantic white cedar, and one of them is called Gymnosporangium, and that's biseptatum, and that makes that fungus makes the trunk swollen like that. It looks like a bee stung them or something. And then there's another one called Geosporangium ellisii, which is like brooms. It makes the branches look like brooms.
Nina,
Yeah?
do you see a fruiting body, or is just like hidden in the wood?
It's in the wood, and this is documented in some of the books on the Pine Barrens. So it's
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
They grow right in. It's particularly it's on Atlantic white cedar.
So you can only find like mycelium, that's it?
I don't know unless you. It's in the wood. I don't know how you could cut the wood. You
So-
kill the tree. Yeah.
So this is one back here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then this one,
Yep.
interesting.
Okay.
We're gonna have to go climb some of these trees and
Yeah.
take a closer look, aren't we?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Cool.
And so those are here. Those are there all the time, but you can see it in February because not many other leaves around. And what's the next one? Wait. So what happened to the
There you go.
There it is. There it is. So that's a Lycopodon. I don't know. That's species. I don't know what type it is, but that was gotten in February too.
And those are the spores for
Those
that.
are the spores. Yeah. So they're not very. This is before I got my nice camera, and those aren't really good. But yeah.
All right.
And this is the Geastrum quadrifidum. Yeah, because there's 4 of those things. The little wings there.
Where did you find it?
Prints underneath a big old Atlantic white cedar.
Oh,
I found it quite a while ago. I found it in 2012, and I've gone back there every year, and I have not seen it.
oh, okay. Look at
So,
the neck.
huh?
The neck.
Yeah,
Yeah, beautiful.
yeah. One of these days it'll be back there again.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Well, Marisol, how constricted the neck is right there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Beautiful. Thanks.
And then this is a marasmus. I had put rotula. It must have. Didn't do the gill. You can't see the gills, but it probably did have a little collar around it. Sometimes when when it's you'll see them right underneath the leaves, and this when it warms up suddenly in February, and then it's gone.
Did you consider Rhizomarasmias pyrocephala for this one?
I have not. This one I got way back, and I don't remember. It was in 2012. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a species that I find very early and also very late, at least very late for around here, as late as maybe the end of November, which is pretty late around here.
Okay, it could be something like that because it was a long time ago. And I don't remember, I didn't write down everything, but
Those grow in leaf litter and other like small forest debris. And they have the dark, hairy stem that has a lighter apex. And the stem is usually a lot longer than the diameter of the cap. So that's why this reminds me of that. If you
this is
saw
it.
the top of the cap, usually Rhizomerasmes pyrocephala has at least some sort of yellow or orange in it.
I tell you who has it. Jeb found it this week. He found one of those.
Oh,
Jeb's still there. So he put it on Facebook, but he's probably went to sleep.
oh, so if it's on NJMA Facebook,
Yeah.
I'll look there later.
Yeah, look under the 60 that he put on there.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere there.
All right. Thank you, Nina.
Okay.
All right. Marisol.
So the mushrooms that I have to find, I'm sorry, that I want to show you, I found them on Saturday. The temperature was like almost like 50. And so it was incredible, and perfect. And I went in the afternoon to the pine barrens because in the morning it rained. It rained the whole night and the whole morning, and then in the afternoon it changed. So I found this Lacaria. It was 15 centimeters long. This type is very long, and it was hidden under the leaves when I was looking for something else. And no relation with the moss. I just put it in there to contrast the color, but no relation. And there were two babies at the base of it, growing there, two tiny. It was a little tiny purplish at the base when I picked it. The cap is very small in relation to the size of the stipe, and it didn't shed the spores. I left it throughout the night, didn't shed the spores, so I had to do micro of the gills, and I found the spores are mostly round with ornamentation, of course. I couldn't do better than that. I found like 3 spores, so I couldn't do better. And that's pretty bad. And I sent the photos to Nina, and she gave me 2 names, that it could be Longipes, or it could be one that has a very strange name, Trichoderm Morpha. So I did the micro of the cap, but I do not see the structures that they claim for the Trichoderm Morpha. So maybe this is bicolor. It has beautiful clams like at the septa. And all I saw on the cap was inflated hypha with that's all.
Good stuff.
Yep. Some of them were really inflated. And so I took a few photos of the ones like that. And one was like a ball, like a sphere in one of the photos, but yeah, no special. Oh, I didn't post it. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right there. The hypha is inflated like a ball. And there is some contents below it, on the hypha that is below it. Yep. Okay.
All right, cool.
Thank you. And there was just one. Oh my goodness, what's that sound?
I don't know.
Oh gosh, this is annoying. Okay.
Here, wait a minute. Let me
See, that's
let me
annoying.
stop. Let me mute everyone, and then you can unmute yourself again.
Okay.
See if that does anything.
Yeah, the sound stopped. Okay, so I found this one on Saturday too, and in the same area where I found the Lacaria, on a deciduous decorticated tree. And when I saw it, I thought it was the Criobolus sudans, which is called the Whipping Crust. But I was I doubt it because it looks very weird. So you see that it has teeth, but the teeth are empty. And I did the microscopic work to make sure that it was what I was thinking, and it was. And then when you find this fresh, the tooth are exuding some kind of matter. And when you see that in the microscope, it's like liquid HEFA. I put some pictures in there. So those are the spores. They're super tiny and thin. I couldn't do better than that. The micro won't get bigger. It has these beautiful structures with some contents inside, very long cystidia-like. I don't know the right name. Can you show the other photos? And it has this projecting cystidia. And oh, in spite of being like so weathered, it still has everything fine inside the flesh. So I got all those things. Didn't I put the last photo?
No, it's just those 4 photos.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
To show you the liquid HEFA. It's okay. Fine, thank you. But it is Dacryobolus sudan. It's called the Whipping Crust.
So this is pretty cool. So these are teeth, but they're hollow. And they exude a liquid, huh?
Yeah, when they are fresh, you see the thing exuding like a transparent glue on top of each tooth. It's pretty weird. Yeah. I didn't realize that the teeth were hollow until I found it like that.
Is this conifer or deciduous? Do you know?
Deciduous.
Cool. Hang on, I was writing notes. It's a cool one. Okay.
This one was found there too. And so I was walking and I found a place where there was an old fence, and I love to turn those old pieces of fence because I always find beautiful crusts in there. And there was a pair of old boots, like leather boots, abandoned there. And when I just turned it over, there was this fungus growing in there. This is the asexual stage of a Pseudo species. So it used to be called Chromelosporium carneum because of the color. And now somebody just sent me a message saying that the name is Chromelosporiopsis carnea. So it changed the name. And it's so beautiful because when you do the micro, it is pink. It's cylindrical HEFA, and the spores are ornamented, round and ornamented. Beautiful. Show the other photo, please. Oh, that one. So yeah.
Oh, very nice. Nice shot.
Yeah.
So
this is huge, and you can see the pink color.
So you said this is an asexual stage of
Apesiza.
Apesiza. Huh.
Yep.
Wow.
I found it once in front of my house. That's the second time I find it. It's beautiful.
So are those spores, are those conidium?
Huh? I don't know more than, I don't really know. All I know is that's the one, but I don't even know where they grow, how they come out of the hypha. I didn't see that.
I think so, right? That they would be, if it's a asexual stage, wouldn't it always be conidia? Maybe somebody else can.
That's my understanding, but I'm not really sure.
See, the spore is not the right name. Conidiospore or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's basically just like a clonal packet of itself.
Oh.
Not a clonal packet. It's a clone of itself.
Okay.
Oh.
I think I
There
understand.
are other species too. There are a few other species. The one that grows, that we see all the time on the soil, there is a cottony white thing, Chromelosporium fulvum. It's just on the soil, directly on the soil, and there are other ones. The blue one, Chromelosporium caeruleum, the blue one, is beautiful. All right, thank you.
Cool. Wait 1 second, please.
Yeah. The surprise was to find it growing on leather. That was the surprise. Okay, so this is another crust, but I didn't expect it to be what I found out. It's called Cystotrema. And it was growing on burnt pine tree. And when I saw it, is very thin, and it has these sclerotia-like structures and also cordons or rhizomorphs. So when I came home, I did the micro of the sclerotia part, I did the micro of the cordons and micro of the regular crust, and it is fertile everywhere. So there is basidia on the little islands of white stuff, and there is basidia on the cordons, and of course on the crust simple part. And the basidia has 6 sterigmata, 6 tips for 6 spores. I couldn't get a better photo than that, but there are 6 in there. And the basidia is really long, and it has a clamp at the base.
Is it
Yeah,
there,
Yeah.
right?
Right there, right there.
Okay, so
Mhm.
there's the clamp.
It's not clear. If I put clear the clamp, then you can see the
Yeah.
tabs. So weird.
And then this is the part that she's talking about with the 6 basidia, or 6, what do you call them? Points.
Sterigmata.
Sterigmata.
Mhm.
So, and they're not entirely in focus, but you can kind of see that there's 4 there. And if you shifted the focus, there'd be more behind it.
Yeah. That's how I counted, but then to take the photo, you can't. It's too tricky. But there was something really cool, because maybe where the cross was just simple, like dust, the basidia was pleural, which means that it grows laterally. There's not much flesh there to grow on, so it's attached laterally. You know what I'm trying to say? So the basidia wasn't as long as this one we're seeing right here.
Is it like laying down flat? Is that what you mean?
No. Instead of growing long as this one, it grows, it comes from hypha that goes sideways, horizontal. It's called pleural. It's okay. It's okay. I can't explain. Those are the spores, and not a great shot, but that's the spores. And it came with a friend. It has this, what's the name of that look?
Is it a tardigrade?
Yes, a tardigrade. Yep.
So cool.
Got a tardigrade there. And do I have another photo? Oh, it has these beautiful double clamps right there. Mhm. And it has this like capitate cystidia. I saw several of them. So a person in Facebook narrowed it to the species, but we don't know for sure that it is what he said, because nobody knows if it happens in the US. It happens in Europe, but here nobody knows. So, but at least I know it's cystotrema. Yeah. There are 6 spores in there. It's too hard to see, but I counted them.
Cool.
Mhm.
All right. Go.
And this one, I found it the same day too. We found it before it was everywhere. This year was crazy for this crust. We found it with Nina, Kiara, Liz. I found it again the next week or 2 weeks that I came back, and I found it on Saturday. And it loves to grow on standing trees. I'm sorry, on standing pine trees of different sizes. We found it on a little skinny pine tree, and I found it in huge ones. And some of them are burnt, and some of them are about to be dead, but standing, nothing else, only on standing trees. And it looks kind of like Flevium tremelosa. It kind of looks like that. But this one likes to grow on vertical surfaces. And it has a little kind of a fused edge. Look, is that the right word?
Yeah, it's like a fused and reflexed, right?
Or reflexed. Yeah. Show the last photo on the tree, please. See how the tree is almost, it has few branches on the top, and it was covered high up with this crust.
Nice.
Thank you.
You said that was fresh now?
Yeah, it was fresh.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah. I found it in many trees.
Cool. Thanks, Marcel.
Thank you.
All right. Susan.
Right. Right. Tried to keep it to a minimum here. I'm calling this Chalicosporus Pseudo Rubinellus. This is something I don't see very often here in the pine barrens, listen to me, in the Adirondacks, but this was just down the hill from me. I see it every couple of years, and it's always this very pinkish kind of form with sometimes a golden top. The thing about the cap color is I think some of that might have been sort of faded as it gets older, and also from the sun if it gets any. But it's a beautiful little color thing. And it's no bigger than about 3 inches, that big one up in the corner on the left. Might be 2.5 inches across. I mean, even that stem is quite big for the usual size of it, but it's a beautiful little thing. And
Spruce.
there would be spruce there. Yeah, probably red spruce.
Yeah, I find it in Norway spruce down here. There's a few spots where I find it. That's the same thing I call it. It looks like yours.
Uh-huh.
I wonder what that name means. I was just looking that up. Chalciporus. I can't see what chalca means.
Oh, I don't know who gave it that name. Who described that as a genus.
Oh, the genus. Yeah, I don't know. There's another one, Rubinellus. And so this one is, looks like Rubinellus, but it's a little different. So it's Pseudo Rubinellus.
Yeah, I don't honestly know the difference, except this is the most consistent way I always see it.
Yeah, that's the name that I find ones that look like this too. And that's what I ended up calling them. I forget exactly what traits, I use to distinguish from.
The interesting thing is it's not like the pipperatus, the Chalicosporus pipperatus.
No.
That's a lot kind of bronzy orangey color.
Yeah, and it usually stains too. It bruises.
Oh, I don't remember that because I don't.
Yeah, it bruises black, I believe,
on
the pores.
Susan, what's the surface they are on?
Oh, it's a rock.
Oh.
I needed to get it grouped together, but also I didn't take it. It's about 3 feet from where they were growing. It was over an area of about 15 feet. So I picked quite a few of them to put them on some kind of a surface where I knew I could get a fairly decent picture. And it's just a rock, a flat rock along the trail just below my house, sort of. Okay, and then the next one, this year I had a really good fruiting of the Hydenellum ceruleum, which is what I'm calling this. It's I look for it as a dyer. It has spines, little teeth underneath the surface. And this particular one is interesting because when when they're young, they have this bluish cast to them, both on the top and around the edges and underneath, excuse me. But you can see by that one on the top, as they get older, they change color quite a lot and become browner and more difficult to identify from other species. But with most of these, especially if they're older, you need to cut them in half. This has very orange at the bottom and then zoning of the white and blue inside.
So,
yeah.
Do they lose the color of the teeth, or only the top is the one that changes?
Yeah, the colors of the spines become kind of duller, more like, as I remember. I usually don't pick them when they're this young. I must have wanted the photo for some reason, because I'm lucky enough here where I live that nobody else is interested in these and nobody else looks at mushrooms that aren't edible. So I can leave them to grow big and mature, because for my purposes, they have more pigment in them when they're older. And interesting, the one that's sort of at about 10 o'clock is the little nub, sort of, the bottom's bigger than the top, but it's already starting to put out its little tiny spines. They're very fun to watch grow.
What's the habitat?
In this case, it's a Scotch pine plantation.
Okay.
Far from me. I've been watching them there for about 25 years, way before I moved up here.
Nice.
Yeah, this group makes a tealy blue-green kind of colors.
Did you ever find it in New Jersey?
If I did, I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
There's some discussion that this is a species complex. So that's something, to my knowledge, I don't think there's anybody really working on this group except one guy, Richard Baird, down in Mississippi, has done some work on it. But this is very consistent where I find it, but I do know that this is mycorrhizal because they're in the exact same place every year, as well as several other places that I look for these things.
And we have found it in Franklin Park, but it was a long time ago. We haven't found it recently at all.
Yeah, I have an idea that, you know, when I lived in New Jersey, I didn't see a lot of these things with spines that much. This one, I'm sure is more of a conifer thing, as opposed to what you find down there would be the Hydenellum spongiosipes and the Scorpulatum concrescens kind of group. Ones that are more brown, all over with spines. They actually make better color for my purposes, but these are such fun to watch, and the color is so astoundingly beautiful when you see them.
Well, we found this on it was growing under conifers, and it was growing along an edge of the railroad track west, right at the end there. But I haven't seen it recently.
I'm lucky enough to be able to go over these trails often, but I also, now that I've lived here 12 years almost, I sort of every year look for the same things in the same spot. So it's quite interesting to me. This year, this one was very prolific, a couple of the others. And I wouldn't say that the rain was any more outstanding than it usually is, but you know, so a couple of years ago, I only found a few in the same spot, but only a very few. And you know, this year, there must have been 15 or 20 of them, and over several little spots that I look at for them. And
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What about the quality of the soil? Is it sandy or is richer?
Oh, it's definitely sandy.
Oh, okay.
Definitely sandy. The whole of the area where I live here in the Adirondacks is all sand.
Okay.
The nutrient depth of the soil is very shallow.
Okay.
So all of these things are in what I would call poor nutrient soil. But then again, if they're mycorrhizal, they're helping the trees, and their trees are helping them. Luke, have you got the next one handy?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sorry this can't be bigger. I know I showed this before, but this is my 8 species, different species in the clade of Teleferaceae. These are all very closely related, and starting up in the right-hand corner is a Sarcodon species. Okay, two of them there. They both, that has spines. The next one down on the same side is Hydenellum ponticulate. Nope, the brown one. This brown one. The upper one is a Sarcodon, which is fleshy with brown spores. The next one down is a Hydenellum, which is tough and leathery with brown spores. Then the next one down, the blackish one, is a Phelodon, tough and leathery, but with white spores. Okay. And then you've got below that in the corner, Bolitopsis. It's a polypore that looks like a bolete. And sorry, you can't see better, but little teeny weeny pores. I should have showed this last week with the polypores, but I forgot about it. And then next to it in the middle there looks like a coral, but it's Telephora anthrocephala, which really looks like a little branch thing, cluster. Now these are all closely related to each other in the clades, same clade, which, well, we'll show that in a minute. But next to that on the left is Hydenellum, also with spines, tough and leathery. This is more likely to be something you'll find down in New Jersey, either concrescence or scorbiculatum. I've sort of given up trying to figure out which is which because they're often looking very much the same, but it produces a really good blue color. And then the next little grouping above that is Hydenellum aurantiacum, I call it. I didn't split that in half, but I should have, but it's all orange inside. Whereas the one above it, Hydenellum ceruleum, is the one that's multi-zoned inside. Well, there's a group of 4 there that are the Ornithica, but the ones in the corner, those are the ceruleums. Now see how different they look from the picture before? That's because I didn't pick them until they were a little bit older. And they look entirely different. The blue color is really lost. As I can remember, they might have white tips to the spines. Too far away for me to remember, but I love to find them. But these are all closely related. And Nina pointed out last week, the clade chart, Gary Linkoff and Michael, I forget who. I don't, if you want to show that, Luke.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we've got spines, 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 and then we've got a thing down at the bottom that looks like a coral. And then we have a thing that looks like a bolete, which isn't, and they're all very closely related. Now, for the DNA, this is what's coming up, that in all of these different clade groupings, they have evolved different shapes. They're closely related. The one that's sort of dead center here, Telepharide clade. We go down to on the side is the spore-bearing surface. Where do they form their spores? Gills, pores, teeth, coralloid, chanterelle-like, which would be on the outer surface, or whether they gastroid like a puffball. And in the case of the clade I'm looking at, we've got pores as the Bolitopsis, we just saw that. And then we had the Hydenellum, Phelodon, Sarcodon, the ones with the spines. And then down at the bottom, we had the Telephra, which was, well, parchment, that one says, but the thing I had was more of a clustery type thing. I wonder if that's not right, because it definitely wasn't, it wasn't a parchment or crust. What's interesting about this is that each one of these groups, that's where, if any of you watched the Swillis thing with Tom Horton, he kept talking about Swillis and Rhizopogon. You'll see in the second clade down in the bolete clade, Swillis is in the second grouping with the pores, fleshy with pores, whereas way down at the bottom, gastroid or puffball kind of form is the Rhizopogon. So the DNA shows that each one of these groups has produced a gilled form, a pored form, a tooth form, a coral form, a crust. This is not complete, this chart, by the way, but it's very interesting that they have now been able to fill in some of these gastroid shapes down at the bottom. There's even a gastroid Cortinarius that's been found, I think, in Australia. Oh, and we talked last week about the polypores. Inonotus felinus, okay, in the Hymeniochaetoid clade. So I'm polypore clade, Fomitopsis, Ganoderma, Latoporus, and then Sporacis. Somebody showed us Sporacis. Well, it wasn't entirely wrong that it wasn't a polypore. It's just in the polypore clade. And then the Phlebia also is a sort of a crust thing, but it is related closely to the other polypores. So I think it's just interesting for some of you who aren't here yet. We tend to group things by the features that we can see for the spore-bearing surfaces, but there's more to the story, and it's become very fascinating with what the DNA people are doing. And it wasn't until Gary Linkoff put this together and made this chart for some of us to see how these things might be related. In my case, I had less trouble with the Telepharas being related because they all die in the same color range, which is kind of a tealy blue-green color. So anyway, that's my, comments for the day.
Yeah, that is interesting that Telephra is put in with parchment and crust.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. Yeah, Gary, I bugged Gary about, he was going to update this because this is from 2005. And he said one of the last times I saw him, he said, I'm not going to be able to have that ready in 2 weeks when he was going to be coming up here. And then he died on us 4 months later, which is tragic. And, you know, he was the only one that could explain this to some of us kind of novices to make any sense out of what the DNA people were doing. But I think it's fascinating when you look, and that we also talked about the Cantharellus a few weeks ago, the chanterelles being related to the Hydenellums. Chanterelles are put in with gild, which isn't quite right, but close. And then the Hydenellum being with the spines, but otherwise they're closely related by their DNA.
You know, closely related to what you're saying here, you just mentioned the Quaternarius. This Friday is Emma Harrer.
Oh, yeah.
Her lecture, and a big part of her lecture is on Quaternarius species that have like the truffle-like form. You know,
Right.
big asteroid, or what she call sequestrate. She calls it sequestrate form.
Yeah,
Fungi that
well,
having
yeah, hypogeus or underground, whatever you want to call it. But you see how many genera have evolved back down to the gastroid form.
yeah.
And
Sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say those 4 blanks down there. This chart's from 2005, 2007. I'm sure there's several genera that have been described or have been found to be related that fall into those different clades. But I'm sorry that Gary wasn't able to update this, but I'm sure if we got somebody like Ritas Figelis, he could probably explain a lot of this.
Great. Well, thank you, Sue.
Mhm.
Excuse me, whoever is dialing in on the phone, could you please mute yourself?
This is Abe Panic.
Here, I'll mute everyone now. There we go. Everyone's muted now. So I think Virginia was next. So you'll have to unmute yourself, Virginia.
I did, yes.
There we go. All right, take it away.
Okay, this is another moist culture, moist chamber culture, because I can work on these in the winter when I can't find any slime molds outside. This is from New Jersey, from Kingwood Township. Leaf litter from under a maple tree. And this is a Trichoderm, and you can almost recognize it by the surface of the peridium. But then there's more features after that. You can see the little cracks in the peridium that expose the color underneath. Okay, so the next picture, and that's some more of them. And then these are about less than 2 millimeters tall at the most. So they're kind of hard to find, probably out in nature. You probably could find them if you look really, really close at that leaf litter.
I was just going to ask, this is a leaf they're growing on?
That's a leaf, yes. Okay, so this is a microscope of the capillicium in these is broken in sections. It's not all continuous. So this style is called elaters. So if the elaters have sharp, long points on them on the end, that's another characteristic of Trichoderm. Other species would have very short points, and the spores are pale yellow. In mass, they're more like ochraceous or dark yellow brown. And the elaters they look like twisted rope. And then there might be another picture, another photo. That's another photo showing the elaters with their long, sharp points. So that's all I have right now.
Did you take these pictures? That's really great.
Oh, yes, through the microscope.
Yeah, wow.
I have my old camera seems to work the best. with it. I have another one that doesn't work at all, taking the pictures that way. But
That's a great shot.
yeah, that's about 400 X, I think. The other, the one before that is maybe 1,000 X with oil. But yeah, that is kind of a neat picture.
Yeah, crazy subject matter and really good job capturing it. Great. Thank you, Virginia.
Good.
So everyone see that name there?
Trichia. It's in the Trichiales because of the spore mass is bright colored, so that puts you in Trichiales. And no lime.
Is that an oak leaf?
No, it was probably maple.
Okay.
There's no oaks there. There's maples and ash, river birch,
Okay.
but it could have been a maple leaf. Some of the leaves are all mixed up there, but it was under a maple tree.
Awesome. Thanks, Virginia.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like Zig Panic is next. Zig, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, I've been having technical trouble. I can see the video, but I haven't been getting any audio, so I had to get on the phone and connect.
All right, well,
So
we can hear you.
But anyways, I took these pictures in October, and I was with the group back in 2013, and I got very busy work-wise, and I'm just getting reacquainted again with mushrooms. I'm having a little bit of time, so I'm really enjoying trying to get back into it. So I'm out pretty much every day out in the woods or outside, so I get to see some of the stuff. But I know this is not a good mushroom, but I was hoping you'd give me the name of it. It's probably easy to find.
Anybody?
Amanita muscaria group.
Well, it is a muscaroid taxon, and depending where you found it, it could be Amanita persicina if the cap was kind of a pinkish orange, as opposed to the variety Gisowii, if it, which is usually yellow, sometimes darker yellow, or maybe slightly orangish.
Yeah, it was more of an orange, or even red almost.
That would sound more like Gisowii.
Unusual color for Gisowii, though. But
I find it once in a while. I'll find some that are they're like scarlet, especially on the disc. The middle of it.
What's the habitat like? Where was this found? The Pine Barrens?
Geez, I really don't remember. I wish I did. I really don't remember. I can't give any much more detail with you.
Yeah, looking at the vulva, it's white in color, so that kind of contradicts persicina, which I think is typically chrome yellow. So it just could be a darker, more redder muscaria variety Gisowii, which is the typical North American species. In the east, that is. In the west, we have something else, a variety Flavivalvata, I think. And the yeah, go ahead.
No, it was found in Monmouth County. I don't know exactly where, but it was on someone's grass.
Okay, Monmouth County. Well, I think part of the Pine Barrens is there. Could be just the northeastern part of it, maybe. So.
All right. Well,
yeah, I'll make note in the future of where I'm finding it.
All right. Well, we got you down to an Amanita there, Zig.
Yep. Take note of the types of trees that are nearby also.
Yeah. No, I should have known better, but like I said, I've been out of it for a while.
Well, great. Thanks for sharing, Zig.
Right.
All right, here we go. So I'm next. So these are all mushrooms from 2020, I believe. Yeah. Although I put this one down first, this Marasmodes fasciculata. I put that down on here because I found that this week. This is from New Year's Day, 2021. But I actually saw this week growing in the woods, but my photographs from this week were not nearly as good as these. So I went with this one, but this is actually growing out there right now. So this is a basidio. It's a cephaloid cup.
This is invasion. I feel bad for the people.
Oh, can we mute ourselves, guys?
Imagine what it will be. Yeah, I don't know.
There we go. Okay. So these are when I first saw these, I think I found these last year, and I thought I was sure they were Nasco because they look just like a little Asco, but they actually are basidios. And these are really, really tiny, like less than 1 millimeter wide each, if that. So they're really hard to photograph. But growing on hardwood. Here we go. So they're just these little teeny tiny cups covered in these hairs. This whole stick, this is just a twig. You know, it looks like it's growing on a log, but that's actually just a little twig. This will probably just a couple centimeters. And some of the microscopy. I don't really know what that is that I'm looking at there.
The hairs.
Oh yeah, there you
That
go.
makes the difference between two species that are very close. One, I think one is divided and one isn't.
Okay.
In the Swiss book, you can see that.
Yeah, you know, I think I originally had a different name on these too. Yeah, I did. I'll show it to you in a second. Then
Merismodes anomalous and Merismodes fasciculata. Yeah, you got the name. Yeah.
you know, I put this name. So I guess when I found it a year before, I used a different name. I got off of Micro Quebec and Heel Splitter.
The other one is anomalous.
Yeah, Django Grootmeyer corrected it, and he put it in as this thing. And, you know, I was just reading this week that I was reading somebody else, his comments on these that somebody else posted on Facebook. He was saying, I think it was him, maybe it was Alan Rockefeller. They were saying they can't seem to get a good sequence off of these things. They keep trying to sequence them and they can't seem to get it to work out for them. So whatever that means. Anyway, that was growing this week in the woods. So here's another Asco that this is from last year. This was a new one to me. That's why I put this in here. Cocomyces triangularis. I found this last April. It was really a cool looking one.
Oh, like wood.
Some kind of hardwood.
Oh my gosh.
Maple or maybe oak.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how it's rupturing out of the wood, right?
Love that photo.
Thank you. Yeah, it's rupturing right out of the wood. I should have saved this for next week because next week we're doing Ascos, but this was one of my favorites from last year. So that's, I think, being taken through a dissecting scope.
Wow.
So they were pretty cool mushroom. Oh, and there's the spores. They're like these needle-like spores.
Wow, one end is like capitate.
Yeah, one end's bigger than the other.
Really something, huh?
Yeah. So I found that right in Philadelphia, right along the Delaware River. I could probably see New Jersey from where I collected it. Just on the other side of the river. Okay, what else do I have here? Okay, so this is another springtime one. I really like the spring. Spring's my favorite season, and I love the mushrooms that I find in the spring. This is a Puccinia, which is a basidio, which is often surprising. It always looks like it should be an Asco, but they are basidios. So Puccinia lilacearum. And this stuff grows on Star of Bethlehem, which is an invasive plant that really grows heavily in the Philadelphia Park area. So it's just, that's what it looks like. It just grows as this like kind of like rusty pustules that grow on the wood. I mean, not on the wood, on the leaf matter. So we see other species of this commonly on like May apples, and there's a species that we see always growing on the little spring beauties, the claytonias. So a lot of them are like obligate to like what they grow on. So it makes them somewhat easy, not easy to identify, but helps you narrow it down, because if you can identify the plant that they're growing on, it helps you narrow it down. So these are the some of the spores. These are the little pustules. So this is like a blade of grass. That's how big that is for scale.
Look, you said that Puccinia is what?
Basidio.
No, I don't think so, with that kind of spores.
I think they may be Candidiospores.
See, yeah, they're not Basidia. No.
But these are in the Basidios.
Oh, because they have different stages. Like sometimes it's like 5 of them or 2 of them. Remember the 2 hosts?
Yes, I do know what you're talking about. These are teleospores.
Okay.
That's what they're called, teleospores. So there you go. Those are good. That's what is that stuff? That really invasive stuff that grows. I can't remember what it's called.
Is that the one that grows the yellow flower?
That one is, yes.
Because somebody just found the most beautiful, another like kind of anasco underneath. You have to turn the leaves. It's underneath, like a cottony gray thing.
Yeah.
Like that rust that grows in the garden, in the leaves, that makes the leaves turn like grayish. But it's under that leaf. I gotta go and find those leaves because it has like forked hypha. Oh, the micro was beautiful.
Well, pretty soon you'll be able to see tons of them.
Yep.
Okay, so that was that one. Okay, I put this one in here. So this is a really common mushroom, Fuscoporia gilva. Used to be called like Phelinus gilvus. This is a super, super common mushroom, but usually I rarely ever see it when it's fresh. And this was just such a nice observation of it from last year, from over the summer. So usually when we find these, they're totally brown, really brown, and usually rotting, and they always have this like slug material all over it. But this is the one they call the mustard, what do they call it? Like the mustard polypore, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you can see why when it's fresh.
And also when you break it apart, inside the flesh is the color of mustard. When you find it all brown and you break it, you see the mustard color inside.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But is that why they call it that? I always thought they called it that because of that.
Oh, I don't know. I never find it. I have never seen it like this, and I found it everywhere, but it's always like this in the left.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yep.
So
Not
this.
like the right.
So you almost can't walk through the woods without seeing examples of it like that. But this is in the fresh stage.
Yeah, break it and you'll see what I mean the next time.
So yeah, look at that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you can use that for dyeing, but it's a very weak dyer.
Oh.
And it would be best at this stage that you're showing.
Oh yeah, nice fresh stage. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, it loses its intensity as it gets older.
Okay. And then the last one I put on here, I put this on here just because, oh look, it's already open. Amanita rooseveltensis. I put this on here specifically because this is one that I learned last year specifically from this group. Because I'm not really I'm not really that great at identifying Amanitas. But we looked at this a bunch of times between Dave and Liz Broderick, showing off examples of it a couple weeks in a row. I was able to go and actually track it down locally. So in the group, and what do we call it? In the Vaginata group. So this was growing under pin oaks. You see my example of the pin oak leaf there in the grass. The spores, which are, what do you call these? Ellipsoid?
Subglobose.
Subglobose?
Broadly ellipsoid, at least some of them.
Broadly ellipsoid.
Yeah,
Oh.
and some of the ones that look like they're round were probably just viewed from the pole.
Yes. Because I think I actually did do a quotient value on that, which is also something that I learned in this group last year. I never had knew of, doing that quotient method with the spores to help describe them.
Yeah, of the many species of Vaginatae in North America, especially in Eastern North America, there's a handful that have ellipsoid to broadly ellipsoid spores, and most of them have globose or maybe slightly subglobose spores. So that sort of distinguishes Rooseveltensis, and there's a few other ones, but not that many. So this is something I've collected hundreds of these in my yard, sent a lot of them to Rod Toulas, and took spore measurements and so forth and so on. And so he made me a co-author on this provisional species. So it's Toulas, Kuzma, and Wasilewski on this one, but it's still provisional. He hasn't published it yet.
Well, they are really prolific because once I started observing them in this, it's in a churchyard, and they must have like 20 pin oaks lining the street there. And but once I started seeing them in there, I mean, you could find dozens of them, and they kept coming back.
Yep.
Rain after rain.
Look,
Yep.
what's on the top left cap?
There?
Scales? Yeah.
Piece of vulva, piece
Yeah.
of
No,
dorsal
the other
valve.
pieces. The other pieces.
Oh, that's
Dart.
tough.
Dirt?
Dart.
Oh.
Yeah, these guys always a lot of times they have dirt on the cap.
Okay.
They
thanks.
push up through soil,
Say-
and almost always on lawns.
Okay.
Like
Yeah, this is-
rich soil on lawns.
Yeah, this is pretty packed soil too. This is,
Yeah. You
on
can
the
see
side
it's
of a
dirt.
side of a road or a mowed lawn that's probably been there for 50 years.
Yeah, they also like shagbark hickory and red oaks. They seem to associate with, but I find them in two spots in my property, and the one spot has no oak. It has some hickory.
Look,
The other spot has a really old hickory and a couple of very, very small oaks.
Look at the gills on them. Look at the gills are like finely serrated.
And,
Yeah,
and
I think it's actually just like there's like deposits on and they're not cystidia because Amanitas don't have cystidia. But there's the other sorts of cells that end up on the edges of gills, and I think that's probably what that is.
and another thing, the striations are really marked.
Yeah, they
It's
usually
next to the right and the left.
they have pretty deep striations usually.
Wow.
The length somewhat varies. Sometimes they're umbonate, sometimes they're flatter. Usually there's a shallow umbo like this.
Mhm.
Gray like battleship gray, silvery gray, sometimes darker, sometimes lighter. But yeah, they start up in June, and some years I'll find them all the way up till October if it stays warm enough.
Yeah, this is
So-
the earliest species of Vaginata to show up. It frequently grows on lawns, and if you catch it early, just as it breaks the ground, the caps actually are very dark brown. As the species begins to mature, at maturity becomes, as they've said, battleship gray or some kind of a shade of darker gray, silvery gray. But it is a common species, and all attempts to get a good ITS sequence for the species failed. It's always polymorphic. You never get a single sequence. There's just a bunch of them, and you're looking like at the forest of peaks. So it's a consistent profile for the species.
And you usually have to dig it up. Like you can see these have a lot of soil on the base and on the vulva, and you almost always have to dig them up carefully to get the vulva. So those were nicely harvested.
It's probably a species group. There are a bunch of silver or gray vaginatas, or section vaginata, I should say there. So if you find it early and the younger ones have brown caps and the gray ones at maturity, most likely you have Rooseveltensis. And of course, if you have a microscope, taking a look at the spores is going to be very useful.
All right, cool. All right, it looks like Nicholas would like to share something. So are you there, Nicholas? You're asking how can you share your screen? So
Yeah.
if you you should be able to, are you on a PC or a laptop?
I'm on an iMac.
Okay, so I'm on a PC. On my computer, if I hover my my mouse down towards the lower half of the screen, I get a toolbar and there's a share screen icon. Screen. There you go. You found it.
Okay. So I found this while I was at the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens in the Wetland Trail. And it just rained, and I don't even know what it is. I'm pretty new to mycology, so I would love some help identifying this species.
Aeolus schweinitzi, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'd say too. The greenish sort of colors on it.
Well, greenish and yellowish growing edge, and then kind of brownish in the center, and also the fact that it's kind of multi-lobed, not just kind of flat. And were there conifers like either white pine, even spruce or tamarack in the area?
I'm not sure the exact species of conifers, but it was a very, very heavy coniferous wood that I was in.
Yeah, I see needles of some sort
I
there.
said they look like spruce needles.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
It's one of my favorite dyers for yellow, green, and brown.
Yeah, when I saw the blue mushroom that you had shared, Susan, I immediately thought about this mushroom, and I wanted to pull it up because it looks similar to yours, more developed, with the brown in the middle and the blue on the outside. It's like brown here with the yellow on the outside.
Except if you had turned this over to the underside, it would be tiny little pores. It's a polypore,
Okay.
as opposed to the thing that I showed before, had little tiny spines all on the undersurface. My picture wasn't close up enough, but they're little tiny teeth where the spores form, as opposed to this, which is pores. As it gets older, the pores tend to get a little bit bigger, but when it's young like this, they're fairly tight together, and they should be yellow to yellowish green underneath.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, thanks for sharing, man.
Absolutely. Great to be part of the group.
All right. Oh, and also somebody did type the name in the chat, so you can see the name of that species spelled out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Is there anybody else that wants to share? I think we got through to everybody that was signed up that wanted to share.
There's time. I'll share a couple.
Yeah, go for it, Lila.
So I've shown this one in an earlier section, but since nobody was talking about it, I thought I would bring it up. When I was growing up as a child, I would find these all the time in the woods where I played under hop hornbeam. And then I have been on a quest to find them, and I could never find them the last 5 years. And driving down a gravel road in the Adirondacks, I saw them along the shoulder of the road. So Caprinus comatus, great edible shaggy mane. So I enjoyed a tasty meal of these.
The size is huge, yeah?
Yeah, they're pretty big.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's what they look like in half.
It's a great picture.
Thank you. So that was exciting to just be driving down the road and see them. And fortunately, I was driving and my husband wasn't, so we stopped.
So you worked with them that day, obviously, because they deliquesce and get too sloppy.
Yeah, I think some of them I ate the next morning. in breakfast. I picked some, younger ones, if you will, and kept them in the fridge and was able to eat them in the morning.
Did you put them in cold water submerged to keep them overnight?
No, just in the cold fridge, I think.
Mhm.
Is that the trick, Susan?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the way to keep them longer than using the same day.
Yeah, I was surprised that they were still good, actually, because I knew that they would deliquesce rapidly, but they were still good. So, but I'll remember the cold water trick if I'm ever lucky enough to find them again.
Yeah, you just have to make sure they stay submerged.
Okay, weight them down.
You can also cook them up and just save them for the next day once they're cooked.
I read somewhere that they're supposed to be really easy to cultivate. I read that in a cultivation book, but nobody bothers because of the shelf life.
May I say something about? Can you please show the photo where you cut them before? Yeah. Here you can see how the spores are maturing and giving that darker color going up. And there are four how do you say that, families or 4 groups in this Coprinus family. And one of this family, they deliquesce. I can't say that word. Deliquescent. Deliquesce or liquefy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Liquefy. So, which means that the spores, while they are maturing, they are liquefying, and then they drip, and the whole mushroom becomes like a black ink. They call them black ink to one of these groups, and it drips. There are the other 3 types, they don't do that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the spores as ink. It's a historical use of the inky part. Is to write and draw. My ex-husband has done that.
I just want to comment on the fact that despite the fact that the species is well known, it's not very common in New Jersey. I've been foraying for over 15 years, and I only saw it once by myself. And when we foray with NJMA every year, I don't think we ever find it. In Europe, it's very common. I lived in Moscow in Russia, and it was growing next to my big building every year. But I spent more than half of my life in the USA. I only seen it once.
It must need colder, higher elevations or something, maybe.
I think it likes disturbed soil. It's often along the road, or it's in edges of parking
Not
lots.
necessarily. When I found it last year, my first time in the USA, it was growing in Stoke State Forest in the woods.
Oh, wow.
But you're right, it prefers higher elevation, colder climate. So northwestern New Jersey is colder compared to the Pine Barrens or middle New Jersey.
In my 5 years,
I find some here in Northeast PA. Some years, not very commonly, I'll find a whole lot of them. I might find like 50 in one spot.
Wow.
But that's not very common. Usually I'll find, 3 or 4. Sometimes they're pretty big. When I lived in New York State too, up near Binghamton, I used to find them up there. But like Susan said, disturbed soil, sides of dirt roads, like abandoned empty lots in the city. Sometimes I'll see them. And they're of Sapporo though. You'll see them 1 year and then you won't see them. Or maybe 2 years you'll see them in a spot and then you won't see them anymore. So apparently they use up whatever nutrients they use up pretty quickly.
When I was a little girl, growing up in Birches in Massachusetts, we used to find them a lot, and we used to have them on toast with bacon and onions for supper. And they were very good.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that does sound good.
Okay. Next one up is Pseudoporous frostii. I showed this one before too, but I just get such a kick out of this one. I think it's a beautiful mushroom.
Igor, this has been put in Batyribolides, hasn't it?
Yes, it's a butterbolete. It's sort of, it's not a, if you look at the phylogenetic tree, it happens to be sitting not inside the actual genus, but on a side. So it's like a pariah. It's on its own, but it's still cladoning in Batyribolides. You know, the red pores distinguish it from the rest of the butterboletes, which all have yellow pores by definition. That's why they're called butterboletes, reference to the color of the pore surface, which is this beautiful shade of yellow. But I heard a rumor that there might be more than one species of frostii in the USA. You know, I was talking to Linus, and you know, he told me that there might be evidence that there's more than one species. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on with this frostii mushroom. I only know of maybe, one spot where it grows in New Jersey, and I found it in the Pine Barrens once. But other than that, it's not very common.
Yeah. Yeah, this one spot, beech. This area seemed to be dominated by beech.
I've never found this up here in Northeast PA. I've seen it in South Central PA. I've seen it at Fungus Fest in New Jersey and at nymph forays and various nymph forays, but I've never found it here.
We have it in the Southlands, and it's also growing on the beach.
Yeah, I found it under oaks in an oak forest. Unlike, you know, a comment on edibility, even though I don't like doing it, but bullies with red pores and bluing pore surface or bluing flesh always had a bad reputation. But this one is edible. It has a very zesty and lemony flavor.
Okay.
Yeah, I eat it when I find it, which isn't very often, but I always try to take advantage of that lemony flavor and kind of make a sauce out of it.
You like it?
Yeah, I do like it, but more is not so much as eating like an actual mushroom, just like a bowl of mushroom, but like I said, cooking it up into like a sauce. And I think I put it over fish.
Like a special ingredient in an additive, pretty much. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it best used fresh?
That's how I've eaten it, fresh. Yeah.
I went back the next morning because I didn't pick it and I didn't section it. I'm like, I really should have sectioned that. I should have looked at it, but I was just so excited to see it. I wanted to leave it there. And I went back the next morning, it was gone. So I don't know if somebody else picked it or an animal got it or what, but it didn't hang around. All right. The last one was the Spores quercinus. That we were,
good one.
that was, yeah, that was kind of the talk of the town for a while. Here it is. And this was fun because Tom Bigelow got word of it, I guess, from you, Luke, and contacted me, and he came out. And that was only the second time. I only got out twice, once with Dave earlier in the year, and then with Tom and Juniper to go see if we could find this about a week after I found these specimens. And they were very large. These were quite large. Growing on this decorticated oak, and about 12 feet off the trail. I was actually walking with a friend with her. She have her dog that day? I think so. So it was more of a go on a dog walk, but it was quite dramatic and caught my eye. So I said, wait a minute, we got to go check this out. I'd never seen anything like it before.
Lila, the tree was fell. Was the
again, Maricel?
Was the tree down on the ground or standing?
Yeah, no, it had been on the ground for quite a long time. It was definitely oak. I think apt to be a dead, white oak, but it wasn't very large, the diameter. But
Because some people, I proposed that name in an observation and they told me that it doesn't grow on bark. I mean, I know yours is not growing on bark, but it grows where the wood is missing the bark or an injured part of the tree, of oak trees.
yeah,
And yours is dead already and it's growing there.
yep, growing on this downed log that been down, I would say, for quite a while. Which is different from how it apparently grows in Europe. It grows on living but ancient oaks, you know, oaks that are 300 and 400 years old over there that are still alive. And they're running out of those kinds of oaks. So it's of a concern apparently from what I've read and what Tom was telling me.
What time of year was this?
I think these were taken in late June, and then Tom came out right around July 4th.
Okay, so that's midsummer.
Yeah.
So these things, what's interesting about these is this is a European species that's well known in Europe, but very uncommon, but was only first sighted in North America about 10 years ago. And then like each year we see them a little bit more. Then this year, like in June, there was just an explosion of them all through like the Mid-Atlantic region.
Yeah. Yeah, I did find it again another place, actually walking distance from my home. Maybe just 2 weeks later.
It's funny. This is one of the bitterest mushrooms I've ever tasted.
Oh, you tried it? Yeah.
Yeah, I usually taste everything, just a spit test. And I mean, this thing had me gagging. It was so bitter.
Interesting.
So it's a polypore, right?
Yes, it's a polypore.
Yeah.
It is worse than Plumbeoviolaceo. The Tylophilus plumbeoviolaceo. Look.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
Is it worse than this purple bolete that is very bitter?
Yes, I know what you're saying. It's in that caliber, certainly in that caliber. I don't know if it's worse or not, but it was like that. And I think the name Spores means ox tongue in reference to that staining you saw on the pores. Because it stains like the color of the tongue.
Yeah, speaking of bitterness in boletes, Tilapilus, I still haven't decided which one of the 4 species is the most bitter. Thelius, Plumbea violaceus, Viola tinctus, or Rubra bruneus. All of them are pretty nasty.
Have you ever tasted the Bear lentinellus? I think it's lentinellus. It's that like.
Oh, Ursinus.
Yeah, have you ever tasted that thing?
No, I never find these
really
things.
Bad.
I never find those things. I never found Albatrellus. I never find, so whatever.
They're good for confirmation, identification.
Yep.
How bad they taste.
Yep.
Well, cool. Great finds, Lila. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, we have about 10 minutes left. Is there anybody else that wanted to share before we check out of here? We have a few minutes. Okay, so I'll go over the announcements real quick before we sign off. So this Friday, we do have a lecture with Emma Harrer, who she is doing a lecture on theories on the evolution of truffle-like fungi. So I think her talk split into 2 parts. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of her talk, she's talking about work that she's done on the Cortinarius violaceus group. So that's this Friday at 7 o'clock. And then next week for this group, next Tuesday, we're doing an intro to ascos with a focus on non-morel type ascos, because this is the season where we start to find a lot of ascos. So we'll just start talking about Ascomycetes, and just ask everyone to pull up your best observations of those things. Again, focusing on things not like morels, because the following week, I think we are doing ASCOs with a heavy focus on morels, including tips on hunting them.
So when we do morels, should we save false morels for then as well?
Yeah, I think so. The tall stipite stuff. That would make sense to me. All right.
I can show you Gyromitras.
Yeah, that's what we want to see. So, okay, so next week, not regular ASCOs, but non-morel like ASCOs, and the week after that, morels and false morels and that sort of thing. All right. All right. Well, anybody else want to say anything before we take off?
Yeah, if I can't attend the Friday Zooms, that you do post them online on YouTube, yes?
We send the links out when we have permission. In fact, I'm getting ready to send one out right now. So if the lecturer gives us permission to record, we do record them, and then I end up emailing them out. It just takes a little while because there's a bunch of groups involved, and I'm not personally the one that records it, so I'm like waiting on somebody else, but we do eventually email them.
Luke, do you have a link to Tom Horton's lecture?
Yes, that's the one I just got it. I will be emailing it
Okay.
out to everyone.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I missed that one. Yeah, I wanted to see it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll send that out actually as soon as we get off here. So, all right, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for sharing, and nice seeing everyone. And we'll see everyone soon.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all.
Have a good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.